I want to thank everybody for being here. Our official name is the Parish President's Advisory Committee on Permitting and Planning. So I'm going to give some opening remarks. Then I would like all of you to introduce yourselves because we really have a lot of expertise at this table. But let me kind of give you the history as I see it and kind of bring us to where we are now. I was on the council. We've been talking about this as an issue, whatever we're talking about, maybe inefficiency, maybe frustration. We're not moving fast enough from permitting and planning since I was on the council. One of the studies that was done was with Lucian Gunter when he was still alive with the chamber, working with Parish President John Young's administration. So that's what I remember things happening, and things were done. Then I become parish president, and that's also on my radar to look at it again. I think of myself as like that process nerd, and I love that kind of work, and I was looking forward to getting into that. COVID hit and some things happened, but we still, after that first year after dealing with COVID, we still did some things, and I'll go over some of those things with you. I've come to the realization now, through many things that we've done and many improvements that we've made, that that's not really the ticket. I'm not hitting the nail on the head. And we've done many things throughout departments that have taken us this far. And I am going to first admit my mistake is that I too thought it was a people problem. Not so much our folks, because I know how hard our folks work, but how our folks were formed, how we set ourselves up. With different departments, different offices, who's talking to who. I really thought that was the problem that I could try to fix by rearranging things and making them more efficient, okay? And I'm not saying, we don't have employees that might sit on things too long. I'm not saying that. And I'll go into that a little bit more. Now I realize, I've come to the realization, which is why we've put together this group of you all to be on this committee, that it's not a people issue. We have created a maze for ourselves, a legislative maze that I was part of. And our people are in the midst of a maze trying to help you all navigate that maze, helping you get through the maze that we've created for ourselves. That's how I see this now. And maybe you will see it, or maybe you'll see it a different way. But now I don't see it as a people problem. I see it as a structural problem, if you want to call it that. Bird's nest problem, and we're in there trying to help you, okay, go through that maze. I want to talk about, my folks know, and I love government, and I love this kind of really deep dive into government processes. I love this kind of stuff. And we need to speak honestly about this if we're going to ever get anywhere. We have to have an honest conversation, and we have to really, I'm asking everybody to really understand all sides of things happening. And let me just rip the Band-Aid off. There's an inherent conflict in the work that my staff does, and I hope you'll get to know our staff. And we get the accusation sometime of not being more business friendly. While I'm the parish president in Jefferson Parish, the economy is very important to me. Of course, I want us to be business friendly. But we'll get that. We'll get that a lot. And I don't like hearing that critique either. But we have to understand the inherent conflict, and it's unique to us. And one of the studies actually talks about it. It's unique in their career, that they are having to enforce rules that their license depends on, maybe their credentials depend on, and they have to be customer service friendly. And that often butts heads with one another. And we need to acknowledge that in this room, and we can't tiptoe around it, because we need to create a system that protects both sides, that we can get more customer friendly, but yet we can let our professionals be professionals. We've got to do that or it's not going to work. So I need to just talk about that, because that's any success will recognize both sides of that equation and get us further along and get us better to it. The other thing that we need to also talk about, and I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off, if you want a system where we're going to hold your hand to any of the property owners, then realize the whole system goes slower, right? I mean, that's just, we have manpower that we have. So if we're gonna give you a great level of customer service and really do things that maybe professionals should be paid to do, then understand that that other application waiting in the queue is gonna take longer. That's just it. So we gotta find the place where we're comfortable with, you know, an owner hiring professionals and having an expectation that a professional knows what we're doing, and we're able to make decisions on that. And the system needs to recognize that sweet spot, because it's somewhere on the scale where you want us to be. I'll go back to Juliet with the chamber hosting us in Nashville. Ruth, when was that trip? After COVID, 2021. Juliet pulls us off to go to another county. Where was that, Juliet? Franklin, okay. So Juliet we missed some, and she, early in the term, we wanted to go see Franklin County. Now, they're much smaller than us, but it gave me a goal to get there. The man who was in charge of it said, did he say 30 days or 45 days? He was real proud of it. He had a big poster, like a big one of these, outside his office. And I think it was 45 days. We guarantee 45 days. Can you imagine that? I mean, like, what parish president does 45 days? We're gonna get your application out. Now, they're smaller, and I'm like, Juliet, if we could ever get to that, and she's like, yeah, we're a long way from getting from that. But I was a naive parish president, 45 days. And then we talked to him, and he says, we manage that 45 days because if the application does not have everything for us to make a decision, it goes to the back of the line. I am not gonna let one project delay everybody else. So if you don't have your stuff together when we're ready to look at it, you go to the back of the line and you let me be timely with everybody else. I love that system, because you're rewarding the people who have their stuff together. People who just aren't ready, they're waiting, and I love that system. And you know, I would love to see us get to that system because it's predictable. If people know that, you know, things are coming, they will work really hard to make sure they make that first deadline. So chomp on that as we go through these days, because we want predictability as much as we can, and we've done a lot toward that effort. So that's some of the conflicts that we have. I appreciate this committee, that we have the task force, and I'm gonna say you at this table know much more than I know, and there are much smarter people in the room than me, especially on this. And I know many of you, hopefully, at the table have had horror stories, because if we don't know where our pain points are and why there are, we're not gonna be able to fix it. So we need to be very honest with it, and we need to really understand those issues. And we don't want your time, you know, opening it up to a lot of complaints, but we need that part of it. And so, and maybe we decided, or if you want to go in a different direction, we put together a form, so all of your experience, or people who know that you're on this task force, you can give them the form, and we can start compiling it and maybe doing it in an efficient way, and we can go through and say, this is where people are getting hung up. We know in the system, this is where people are getting hung up. This is a really bad point for us. If y'all want to do it a different way, that's fine too. If you want to open it up one day, however you all, this is your task force. But we need to understand that as well, is the horror stories that we've had. And then you also need to hear from our staff, their side of the story as well. I mean, we've got to look at the whole thing, right? So with that, I want to kind of go over, and we'll get to introducing, and again, I'm so pleased with the expertise that we have in this room. I can see it now, and I feel like we'll cover every part of this process. This is going to be hard work to do. I have no reason to defend our process. I have absolutely no reason to defend the system we have now, and I'm completely open to this committee coming up with a better way to do things. We will embrace that. But it's just going to be a lot of hard work, and we want to support you in our efforts. Juliet's going to, you know, introduce the staff that we have in this room that are ready to support the efforts, because I don't have to hide it. I want to open it up to the community and say, this is our system, and please help us make it better. And that's the work that you have, and your expertise will help us do that. So please, I don't even know some of the processes that they know, and I am not committed to them. All I want to do is make sure we follow all the rules and regulations. And look, we can change local stuff. We can't change the state or the feds. Or if we do try to change the state, it would take some time. And I think we have a council now that's willing to make some legislative changes, I hope, to further us on. Okay, so now is the time. I want to just quickly talk about some of the things that we have done, but let's first maybe go through the room and do some introductions, and if you could introduce yourself and then tell your background just kind of quickly so we know where the expertise lies on the table, okay? So, we want to start with you? Okay, we'll start with you, Chance.
Hello? Yes. Chance Miller, Miller Building Company, high-end residential homes in Old Metairie. Family's been doing this since 1917. Definitely building, and I've got heartburn going through a permit selection on Rosa right now, so I can help out on a vast amount of things.
Yep, yep.
Good morning, I'm Charles Silvernagel with CLS Architects, and we've been practicing architecture in Jefferson Parish for the last 40 years. So I have a pretty good understanding of, from start to finish, of permitting process. Thank you.
All right, good morning. Bert Turner, architect, Mouton Long Turner Architects. I chair the Planning Advisory Board. I'm on the Board of Standards Appeals. Been doing this for 25 years in Jefferson Parish.
Hi, Russell Austria, owner of the Olive Branch Cafe, 28 years in business here on the West Bank. Basically, I'm here as a representative, I guess, from the WBIA, West Bank Business Industry Association, and I'll be just kind of meeting with them on a regular basis and briefing them on the progress and getting their input as well from the executive committee there.
Vincent Vestola, Marrero Land Company, semi-retired. We do all sorts of real estate development, new development. We do joint ventures. We did the TPC golf course. We've done shopping centers. We have an interest in the Avondale Shipyard, so on and so forth, and we deal with the planning and permitting department on somewhat of a regular basis and have had some issues.
Donovan Duffy with Meyer Engineers, representing ACEC. So engineers and architects, both private and public work. I guess one thing I'd like to say for everybody is, from my standpoint, we do a lot of work with the recreation department, and it's not just the business communities or private development that has to go through the hoops. The parish makes all departments, recreation and everything, jump through these same hoops. So it's positive and negative, but yeah, so I'm bringing that side of the expertise to it.
Frank Morris, President of Morris Homes, been around since '75, which is probably too long for some of you guys. But anyway, I'm here to support the parish president and the task force in their efforts to try to improve and make sure that we do things right for both sides of the equation.
Good morning, Jeff Charlet. I'm a proud Jefferson Parish retiree, worked here from 1979 to 2009. Since then, I've been doing some code consulting and right now doing quite a bit of third-party inspections and looking forward to participating.
Thanks. My name is Will Place. I'm the Director of Development for Lauricella Land Company. That's a third-generation real estate company based in Jefferson Parish with primary assets in Jefferson Parish, from shopping centers to self-storage, multifamily. Just thankful for the opportunity to be here with all of you, and thankful to Parish President for seeing a need and working to fix it. So thanks so much.
Good morning. Peter Spear, Principal and Co-Founder at GOAT. We are a commercial architecture and interiors firm based in New Orleans, but do work all over South Louisiana. I'm the representative for AI in New Orleans. I'm past president AI in New Orleans. I've also served on some committees with the same kind of permitting issues in New Orleans. So yeah, I think I bring a lot of knowledge and some ideas and have gone through this process before, and I'm also a resident of Gretna, so thank you.
Good morning. Adam Chimner with Matt Bowers Auto Group. I have somewhat of a unique perspective, and this might out me. I'm not a longtime local. I relocated about 3 years ago. So I've had the opportunity to design and develop across 20 or 25 states. So I've seen a lot of different processes and people. So excited to be here. And I want to say it's refreshing to have a local government do a personal and public self-reflection. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
My name is Jim Martin. I'm a professional engineer. I'm here representing the Jefferson Business Council. Of our members, the 50 or so CEOs in the membership, I think about 25 have voiced concerns about their projects making it through the permitting process. I'm also a member of JEDCO, and we have a vested interest in making this place really a good place to do economic development projects.
Good morning, Ruth Lawson, President of the Jefferson Chamber. Happy to be here. Just as Jim mentioned, our members often voice frustrations or wanting to improve the process with the planning and permitting. So hoping to provide some insight from our 1,000-ish members of the chamber.
Good morning, Jerry Bologna, President and CEO of JEDCO. I had the privilege of orchestrating and running the last time we revisited this, of which some of those suggestions were implemented, some of them were unable to be implemented, but I also get to hear from our developers, our businesses every day, and for a parish that touts themselves as being the business-friendly option, it's like a knife to the heart when somebody tells me it's easier to do business in another parish. So we want to make sure we're doing everything we can to keep ourselves ahead of the game.
Good morning. I am Lisa Manzella, General Manager of Lakeside Shopping Center, the file organization, substituting today for Brian Lade. He's sorry he couldn't be here today, but we're looking very forward to participating in the committee. Lots of good ideas and opportunities to discuss issues that we've faced in the past and how we've overcome those issues. So we're looking forward to it.
Morning. I'm Bob Grace. I'm representing the West Bank Civic Coalition, but I've had an entire career of working with computers, also with the oil and gas industry and banks. And currently I'm a notary public, which makes me one of the choke points in the process.
Thank you for your honesty.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Stacy Alessandro. I'm here from Good Roots Realty. I'm a licensed real estate agent for the last 8 years. I'm also a founder and past president of Citizens for a Better Kenner. And I deal with, in my profession, I deal with people who use the permitting process every day, electricians, plumbers, concrete pourers. So I'm very happy that the parish president has put this advisory group together. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Juliet. Introduce yourself.
Good morning. I'm Juliet Cassine. I am the CAA for Land Use and Development for Jefferson Parish. And I think I know or have worked with most of you in this room at some point in my career with the parish, which is coming up on 21 years this June. I'm also going to introduce, we have a number of parish employees involved in the planning and permitting process with us in the room. And so most of them are seated behind you. I'm going to ask them to just briefly stand as I recognize them. No, I'm just going to introduce them. We have with us from the Building Permits Department, Danny Ferreira, who is the director, and Tremone Chetta, who is the assistant director. From the Planning Department, we have Director Bess Martin, Assistant Director Elena Gesser, and Amanda Ponte, who is the senior planner over what we call long-range planning, but for the purposes of this committee is the division within the planning department that deals with drafting amendments to the codes of ordinances. And I think that's going to be a big part of our down the line discussion are the rules and regulations. We also have with us from the engineering department, Angela DeSoto, who is the director, and she has a team of her engineers, including Alexa Dale, Shannon Joseph, Vincent Acosta, am I missing someone? And then we also have some folks from the Parish Attorney's Office, including the Parish Attorney herself, Tony Hurley, Hanlon DeVerges, who will be speaking later in this meeting. We have Jordan and Kendall, Lynn, and I feel like there's somebody else I'm not seeing. These are just a small subset of the parish employees who are involved in the overall planning and permitting process. Possibly at some point later with this committee, we'll do a deeper dive into all of the departments that are involved. But I think these are the folks that most of you involved in planning and permitting have sort of regular interaction with these directors and these senior level staff.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I also want to, Mayor Constant, please stand up from Gretna, so she's here listening in. Steve Lachute is our Chief Operating Officer, Shireen Gegenheimer is our Deputy Chief Operating Officer, and we have Gretchen and Justin from our Public Information Office. Who else did we miss from the parish side? Anybody? Okay. So you can see we have a whole host of departments here, and they're eager to hear your recommendations and support your committee. I'll be a fly on the wall when I am at these meetings. This is your committee. We want to support you. So you take this committee wherever you want to go. We're here to help, answer questions, and be a guide to the extent that you want us to be a guide. But make no mistake, this is your committee. This is the community coming in and helping us. So you're going to hear me today, and then you're not going to hear much else from me, because you're in the driver's seat for this, okay? But we're here to help, and we're not going to let you, whatever help you need, we will get you that help. Make no mistake, you will have the help you need, because we all want the same thing. Now I quickly want to go through, like I said, since I've come in office, some of the things that we've tackled, and we have made improvement. We have definitely made improvement, but I don't think it's the improvement that we need still, okay? Let me quickly go over some things. We came in, and what we realized is this is how government happens. We have the permitting platform. We take permits. Over the years, all these other permits were coming in, and when I got down to it, I realized, well, this group of resources that we need so much also does approvals for garage sales and Christmas tree lots and food trucks and block party and Mardi Gras. And I'm like, why are y'all approving these things? Why? And they're like, well, because it's a permit and it comes through the permitting system. And I'm like, no. So we quickly took a lot of work and got it to other departments. So we got workload off of them, because that's just how it's developed. They started doing, well, because it comes through our software, so we do it. Like, all right, we did that. We also got rid of the hotel, motel, short-term rental, dumpsters, peddler's permit, all those permits. We got them out of the planning side. Some water things, float meters, got them away. Metairie tree preservation, got that to Parkway. So we took a lot of work that we could off of this group, okay? The name that we came in with, and this is sounds simple, in the private sector it would be simple, took us a lot of work. Inspection and code enforcement and property maintenance and zoning, that was the names when I came over of those departments. If you looked at the name, you would actually go to the other department, like it was backwards. So now we rename those building permits. If you need a permit for a building, you go to building permits. Code compliance and enforcement is exactly what it sounds like. It makes you comply with the code, high weeds, graffiti, those things that you're not abiding by our rules, you go to code compliance and enforcement. Very simple. Sounds simple, we changed the name. It was like a big deal, a lot of research, because unlike the private sector, we have all these references in the code, a lot of legal work to just change names. We've done that. Changed offices to make it more streamlined, okay? We've added what we call permit navigators. These are people who take time we don't want the decision makers who've been trained so highly to make those decisions, but they're chasing after documents all day long, right? Because they're just trying to put the app together, emails to you all. We wanted to give them more of a complete package to make a decision. We've opened up a lot of positions to get those, what we used to call them, like, kind of they're permit navigators, but they kind of, shepherd the sheep kind of thing. They get everything together to give it to the person in a more complete package to make a decision, and that has helped us a lot. But that was a lot of new positions and a lot of trained people to help that do. We made some office moves to make their work much more streamlined. So we've had to change offices throughout the Yenny building and the West Bank. We've done that as well. We've done a new interface and a landing page on the website to make it easier to submit and track applications. So it will break down an application into the steps that you need to follow. We've done that. And then we've attracted more reviewers and inspectors to provide for jobs. We've done some workforce things to provide incentives for employees to get their certifications. So we've done all those things in the past couple of years, and it has improved things. But I think the frustration is still out there. So this is where you come in. I want to quickly talk about all the times. How did this go back? Okay. The prior studies that were done. There was a study done in 1997 that I didn't read. Juliet said, don't read that study. It's kind of so far gone. The study in 2012, this was, Jerry, the study you were very involved in, the 2012 with JEDCO and GCR, right? That study that study was great because it really got into our departments and really gave us very detailed, this department needs to do this, very, very detailed recommendations, which we did make a lot of those recommendations at the time. But in reading that study, I want to talk about, I want to read some things to you in that study because I think it's point on, and it's still the case now. And it's the case in most jurisdictions. And I forgot to introduce Larry and Ashley back there. They are from New Orleans. New Orleans is currently going through this process. And I will say to you, probably every jurisdiction in the country, for those of you who are on the development side, it can't go fast enough because we understand you're paying taxes, you're paying for professionals, you're paying your insurance, all of those things. You're waiting to open. It's a frustrating process. And so New Orleans, when Councilwoman Helena Moreno heard about what we're doing, she quickly texted me and I said, tell your people to come over, let them listen in. And I think, Larry, y'all are kind of going through the same process in New Orleans as well. So thank you for being with us. This is the JEDCO study from the Jefferson Edge. This is the 2012 study. I want to read some of the things that it says. In even the most efficient, well-run jurisdictions, the building permit process is inherently complex. And I'm going to go down. The complexity of municipal regulations and permitting processes has not evolved by chance. Layers of regulations have been adopted over the years to deal with the competing priorities and public interest that comes with each new building in mature, built-out communities. The most succinct way of explaining why communities have these regulations in place is that what happens on someone's private property has an impact on other people's well-being, property values, safety, and quality of life. I'm going to skip, and it says, these regulations are not static, as they are periodically revised to address emerging threats and specific community concerns. In Jefferson Parish, a number of changes to zoning regulations have been adopted over the past 20 or so years in order to address community concerns. These include the newly adopted Fat City zoning regulations. So that was me. I adopted those in 2010. Why? Why did I put a whole new complex set of regulations in Fat City? Because Jefferson Parish did not have a pedestrian core. When you travel to Texas, you travel to Florida, we've all been in the developments where you have these great pedestrian cores where the community congregates and you have coffee shops and restaurants. We were not built out that way. And we said Fat City is where the bones are that we could do that. Gretna has an area downtown, we can do that. Westwego has an area. Kenner Rivertown, Kenner at the lake. Very few places in Jefferson Parish can we go out and kind of grab that after the fact. And Fat City was certainly one of those. So we said if you're going to redevelop in Fat City, you got to push your building all the way to the street, you got to put the parking lot behind you, and that was to achieve that. But it was a whole host of other, makes it more difficult to develop in Fat City. Charles was part of that. I'm calling you. Thank you, Charles. So this is why we do these things. It makes it more difficult, but we're trying to achieve some other good goal for the community. So they talk about the Fat City zoning regulations, the CP overlay along Veterans Boulevard, which is incredible. The CPZ is why Veterans Boulevard does not look like it was in the 70s, and we have landscaping, and it looks like a true boulevard, and it's our highest commercial, corridor on the East Bank. So that was good for us. The Metairie Ridge Tree Preservation District. We know Metairie, those property values are high, probably because of the trees, right? I mean, and the Old Metairie Commission, okay? While they address legitimate community concerns, such as the health of the parish's tree canopy, these additional regulatory layers do add time and complexity to the permitting process. Again, it's the conflicting, goals that cause problems, but that's what we're dealing with. This is what they say as well, which we've realized. The twin goals of strong customer service and a strong review process carry an inherent contradiction, a contradiction that other customer service providers do not have to contend with. For example, a restaurant or a hair salon only has to worry about their customers' happiness. They do not have to worry about their customers' compliance with particular rules or regulations. Thus, the element of both serving and critiquing the customer is a unique challenge that plan reviewers face in issuing permits. So I wanted to talk about that because it's part of the work that we're going to do, and I think this study hits the nail on the head back in 2012. So 13 years ago, we're still at this place, but the conflicts are still there with us. And then in 2016, another study was done that you all know. Maybe this is some of those things that came out of that. The previous administration was risk averse. There was inconvenient, no online submissions. We've changed a lot of this stuff. The system is confusing. It's not transparent. It has terminology problems. The permitting process crosses department lines, and there's a lack of communication between staff. There's no master coordinator, and the staff is not trained. Those were some of the highlights of the 2016 study. And if you want to read any of these studies, Juliet can certainly make them available to the task force if you think that you all want to do that. So in the 2016 study, they did a flow chart of our process. So this is the flow chart in 2016. It's difficult to see, but I want you to understand how complicated it is. And I'm going to show you our current flow chart now, and we're going to distribute it. We did it again. This team right now, to help you all and to help us, we have the new flow chart, which I think is very critical to your work. Juliet, you want to pass it around? We're going to get it. Do we have a big board too? So you're going to be referencing this a lot, but this is what I call the maze of regulations that we have created ourselves. And I'll have to say, I love our council, but they passed something just within the past 6 weeks that added something else to it. But again, it's because they were trying to address a community concern. This is what happens in the political process. I was part of it too. So this is the current maze that we're under now. What I loved about, is this the one? What I loved about what my staff did was, yes, we could change state. If we did that, it's a long shot, but we could probably change state rules. We can, even a longer shot to change federal rules, but let's focus on what we can change and quickly, make good use of your time. The things in yellow are local ordinances or local rules, and with the council vote, we could change those things. So to try to give you, right, Juliet? Oh, I'm sorry, I said it backwards. The yellow is what we don't control. The yellow we cannot control. So how many colors are there? So everything else is could be controlled by our council with a vote? I don't want to get too in the weeds, but we're trying to I don't want to do their work, but I just want to point out that there's some things that are easy grabs and some things that if the committee comes up with changing federal law, we're not going to get very far, right? So
I think this is something that we'll probably need to get into in a later meeting. But just as a quick highlight, I think the substance of what this committee is really going to talk about is the review steps. So we kind of called this out here because this is the piece where we feel most people get hung up is the review process. But there are outside agency reviews that are required, and then there are a number of applications that have to go through a public hearing process. Those public hearings, some of them are codified, or even the charter. The Planning Advisory Board is actually a charter committee. And those processes, some of those, the code mandates, certain applications have to go through these hearings. Some of those are things we can change. But the department doesn't control those boards. Once you get into that part of going to those boards, if you get deferred, if things happen, those are outside of the department's control.
Okay.
So that's why that's
Perfect.
in yellow.
Perfect. Okay, so I want to thank you for the bottom of my heart for being willing to take the time to help us, and that's how I see you all helping us. Our teams are, again, here to support you. We're very open to the recommendations. This is opening this process up to the community, letting everybody see all of what we're about. And this process is important to the parish, and I really thank you for the hard work that you're going to do, because I know it's time consuming. And that is the end of my comments, and I will be a fly on the wall unless you need me, but thank you so much. Thank you for being with us. And that, now I'm turning it over to Hanlon. Okay, so Hanlon is a member of our parish attorney staff, and we need to make sure that this committee, we're a public body, he's going to tell you your obligations with that. Right, Hanlon? Okay, thanks.
Yes, as she said, I'm Hanlon DeVergis. I'm with the Parish Attorney's Office, and Tony Hurley's the Parish Attorney in the back. And as we go through this, we're always available for questions on especially procedural questions, and our office will serve as secretary for these meetings. And we'll go through some housekeeping items, especially on Louisiana open meetings law. This board is created by the parish president under the parish charter, so any quorum or majority of this public body is subject to open meetings law. The meetings are going to be recorded and open to the public. Public notice with an agenda is going to be posted at least 24 hours before meetings, physically and on the parish website, and also be emailed to the board members. If we will be addressing items on that agenda only, unless there's non-controversial items and no objection, we can address that. But otherwise, we will be sticking to things that are on the agenda. We will be taking and approving minutes. Open meetings law says that proper identification of all persons must be noted for the record, so please do not speak unless recognized by the chair, which we will elect momentarily. Please state your name for the record if the chair did not do so, and try not to speak over each other without having the floor. The posted meetings are the appropriate place to discuss these topics, so please do not discuss outside the meeting if a quorum is present, such as right after the meeting, and this even includes discussing by email or by text chains. Louisiana open meetings law also prohibits secret balloting, and there will be public comment periods before any recommendations are voted upon. Again, please feel free to contact me if you have any procedural questions. I know that was kind of a mini quick training on public meeting law, just in case you have, just at least for you to be aware that we do have some of those rules for in here. And if there's nothing else, we'll move on to the election of the chair and the vice chair, and then I can step aside after that and have the chair control the meeting. Or Tony, do you have anything else? All right. So the next item on the agenda is the election of the chair. I will call the election on behalf of the president, the parish president. We will have open nominations from the floor, and if necessary, we'll have a voice vote or a show of hands. That might be easier with this setting. That said, nominations are now in order for the position of chair. No second is required.
I'll nominate Bert Turner as chair. A second.
Council did that to me yesterday.
Does he have to accept? Does he have to accept?
Yes.
Do I get a choice? The thing is, I mean, I share the PAB. I don't think I should share this one. I could vice chair, but chair, I would like to defer.
Defer the question. Are there any other nominations from the floor?
We're gonna support the chair. You're not gonna have to do everything, we have our departments, will help you through it. We're not throwing anybody out of the rules.
I'm nominating Charles.
I'll second that. I guess I don't have any excuse.
Are you,
I accepted it.
okay. All right, sounds like there's no other, if there's no other, if there's no other nominations, then Mr. Subernagle will be elected by acclamation. So you are now the board's chairman. Now we'll have an election for the vice chair. Are there any nominations from the floor for vice chair? The vice chair will fill in if the chair is unavailable for that meeting.
Do you want to do it first? Okay. I'll nominate for you.
Okay. Okay. Are there any other nominations? If not, then Mr. Turner is elected vice chair by acclamation. And now that we have a chair and vice chair.
I have a thing about chairing two things.
Well, that makes me feel better.
All right, that's it.
We also wanted to take this opportunity to just make this committee aware of two other efforts that are ongoing relating to improving the planning and permitting process. The first of which is we are going out for a RFP, which is request for proposals, to rewrite the entire zoning code all at one time. And that is a very big lift. It is a long-term lift. But we wanted you all to be aware, this is a process that is being funded through Community Development Block Grant, disaster recovery funds from Hurricane Ida. This is money that we do have in hand. As I said, it will be a comprehensive update to both Chapter 33 of the Code of Ordinances, which is currently the Unified Development Code, and it will be the process where we move all of Chapter 40 into Chapter 33 so that we have one code. We do have a one-pager that is a description of the RFP and goes into what we've advertised. When this starts advertising on May 7th, this is a summary of what the varying consulting teams that will be submitting for this will understand what is the scope of what we are trying to achieve. So I have a copy for each member.
Julie, I have a question. Regarding this particular RFP, is there, usually there's a Ruth Lawson, I'm supposed to say the record. Is there a preference for a local company that understands the atmosphere? I say that because when we did our industrial zoning, it was a really big issue that we had a out-of-town Chicago firm that truly didn't understand our landscape, I don't think.
So what I will say to that is, I believe there's probably some scoring related to that. One thing that we are doing unique with this RFP process, because this is such a major project and undertaking, it is very important that we have a good understanding of who these teams are beyond what they just submit on paper. So for this RFP, which is a little bit unique to the department process, the closing date will be June 6th. That's when we will take in the initial applications. The scoring committee will evaluate the submittals, and then I believe the top three teams will actually be scored in a follow-up interview process where they will come in person. That meeting is an open meeting, if I'm correct. And so certainly we will communicate that information to this committee once those interviews are scheduled, so that any committee members are welcome to attend that meeting and actually hear the interviews. There'll be set questions that the committee will ask all of the interview teams. And that, I think, will really help us talk to them rather than just seeing what they submit on paper. So that is something that we're pursuing. I want to be very clear. This is a 2+ year process, but this is the best way of addressing, to the parish president's point, a lot of our regulatory framework at a local level. We've done it piecemeal over the years, and that's left us in some of this maze. Because this is CDBG-DR funded, there is a definite end date for when we have to complete this process. But we're really just in the beginning phases of it. The second thing, and I do see, Jim, you had raised your hand. So generally these are planning firms that have some form of code of ordinance writing expertise. I believe the RFP does require the principal to be AICP certified. That's a certified professional planner with 15 years of experience. We are also advertising, and I did not keep a copy for myself, but I believe we are also looking for somebody who has land use law experience. Thank you. Yes. One thing that we particularly made sure to include is that we want consultant teams that have similar experience with a community municipality of at least 300,000 residents. We need to acknowledge that we have a very large community with multiple competing interests. And so we're looking for a consultant team that is used to doing public outreach for a larger municipality. It could be. There could be, yes. In addition to the RFP, which is the parish administration-led project, at a recent council meeting, the parish council authorized an advertisement for a statement of qualifications, which is going to be funded by the Jefferson Parish Council. That was written as consultant will produce drafts of proposed plans or amendments to the Code of Ordinances to address the permitting ordinances. I will be honest, this is also just now going out to advertisement. I don't know, I'll be blunt, I don't know how much money is being put towards this initiative. This is being led by the council. But one thing that we do have an interest in is that the RFP process, this SOQ, and the work of this committee are all moving in the same direction. So as we learn more about where this SOQ goes, we will bring that information back to this committee or identify ways for this committee to be participant in those processes as well. So finally, as the parish president mentioned, we do have a feedback form. It was here at the table as you all checked in. We've also made this feedback form available online on the parish website. Under the government tab of the parish website, there's a board and commissions landing section. That's where this committee's webpage is, and on that webpage is a fillable form. So you can either complete it and hand it in, or you can direct people to that website. The form is structured in two ways. We are looking for, if you have a specific project underway that you need assistance with, you can provide us an address, you can give us your permit or your application number and describe your problem. Or if you just have general comments regarding the permitting or planning process that either you or people you share this forum with want this committee to understand or consider in their deliberations. So again, we have copies here at the table. If you want to have an immediate thing you want to fill out today, you can fill it out and turn it back in, but it is also available online. The next item for discussion with you all is meetings. As we mentioned in the letter asking for appointments, we anticipate this committee meeting on a monthly basis, the first Thursday of each month. To that end, we have reserved the East Bank and West Bank regional libraries through the end of the year. However, as the parish president said, this is your committee. We just thought it would be easier for everyone's scheduling if we, from go, had a set time that everybody knew we would be meeting. There are only 2 variants to the first Thursday of the month that we have scheduled to date. That would be for July 3rd. Given 4th of July holidays, we've reserved the library for the following Thursday. And then I believe in November, it might have been a conflict with Veterans Day. So we will certainly send out an email with that meeting schedule if that is satisfactory to the committee. But if you all have any need or desire to change that, we will work with you all to book meeting space. And I believe that leaves us to the final item, and at this point, I'm actually going to turn this over to the newly elected chair of the committee, Mr. Silbernagel, as to our next agenda in June. We preliminarily had thought that it might be good for the work of this committee to actually look at the permitting platform, the My Government Online system, and look at it from both the customer side and the jurisdiction side and talk a little bit about that. However, if there are other more immediate topics that this committee would like to discuss, we'll be prepared for that. So, Mr. Silbernagel, I don't know if you want to come up here, if you would want us just to bring you a mic.
All right, well, this is the first time I'm going to be chairing a committee, so it's going to be a learning process for me, guys, going through this. But I'm actually honored that I was chosen to do this. Thanks. And I'm looking forward to going through this process with everybody and trying to, develop this ease of getting our permits approved and going through the steps that is going to enhance our parish. Anything else that I need to be telling this board or how we're going to proceed? I think we need to develop some sort of format in how we're going to proceed at these meetings so we can have a very productive meeting as we go through the process. And I'll be thinking about this process, working with Juliet and Brent on kind of developing this format and what we're going to be achieving at each one of these meetings. I think I think our time is all valuable, and we should be very productive and look at what we can proceed with. I think that's all I have to say at this point. Again, this is my first chair, so y'all have to work with me going through this process. Thank y'all.
So those are the items that we had scheduled on the agenda. Before we adjourn, I just want to open the floor, if that's okay with the chair. If there are any specific questions or comments from any of the committee members that you would like addressed at this point.
The ongoing proposal for the review of permit process, that's gonna take place concurrently with what we're doing, right? And, is that right?
We believe so. Again, that SOQ was authorized by the parish council, is going through the purchasing process now for advertising for submittals to that SOQ. So we don't have a defined scope of work to that. I believe that is going to be more maybe focused on the building permitting regulations, some of which are codified in the parish code of ordinances procedurally in conjunction with the Louisiana Uniform Construction Code, which, as some of you, just so you are aware, Jefferson Parish, all parishes in Louisiana municipalities all follow the Louisiana Uniform Construction Code, which was adopted following Hurricane Katrina, and certainly Mr. Morse can speak much more to that than I can. So when we talk about, there's the building code, which Jefferson Parish adopts by reference, and then there are codified procedures as to how the parish implements compliance with the building code. Or adopts, yes. So we believe that that SOQ may be focused more on the building permitting part of things. But to be very clear, a lot of times the issuance of a building permit is affected by where an application is in the zoning planning review process, whether a subdivision is required first or it requires some form of variance that has to go through the planning process. So there will be natural overlap, and our hope is that we can keep all of these efforts moving in the same direction and not have too much duplication of initiative participation. And so what role this committee can play in that SOQ process, we'll see once we actually really get those responses and know who the consultant is and what that scope's going to be.
Do you know when that is gonna be, when they're gonna grant the SOQ? Or is that?
I checked with purchasing yesterday, hoping to have those dates to be able to share with you, similar to how we had the dates for the RFP, and they did not have those dates to provide to me yesterday. But I do anticipate that it will probably similarly start advertising on May 7th, but I don't know if RFPs and SOQs have the same advertisement requirements, so I don't know what that closing date would be.
I am and still on a task force for New Orleans for exactly this same thing. Actually, unfortunately, it's been about a year and 3/4. They did the consultant review after us, and we provided a 20-page document, which I'll be happy to provide to our chair and vice chair so they can share that too, because I think there are points in there that can cover a lot of the things that we need to do. But in a different manner in quite a few instances, because New Orleans is not Jefferson Parish by any stretch, for sure. But I would tell you this, that the implementation of those requested changes have been very slow. And I think that with this group, I think hopefully we'll be able to produce better final products quicker and get it implemented faster than what we have. In one instance, I'll give you an example, is the roofing permits. They just passed the resolution, and you know how long we've been doing it. We now have 1,800 of those, and he can tell you better than I. But I think that this is critical to this group, because what is in that 20-page document, 20-page document, are a lot of things that can assimilate into our group to be able to help us to get to the bottom line quickly rather than trying to figure it out. So just wanted to offer that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Morse. And Ms. Martin did provide me an update regarding the SOQ timeline. She got an email this morning. It will advertise May 7th through the 21st, and then they will open the SOQ responses on May 22nd. So we should be able to provide you some information on that, ideally at our June committee meeting. Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Mr. Chair. Jerry Bologna, congratulations on your election. I just want to state something for the record in terms of, I think, my interest in this committee. Whether it's a people problem, a programmatic problem, I think, yes, our task is to see where those problems lie. But on a parallel track, I think our real duty has to be to look aspirationally at what is the gold standard. That what can we do to make our process better than anywhere else? And my team, I know, is going to kill me for this, but I'll even commit the JEDCO team to do some of that research to look at what communities are doing it better than any of us. And I'll use the example of Nashville because I've spoken to a local business owner who is building things bigger in Nashville than here, and his team can fly into Nashville, submit for a permit, and fly out that evening with a permit. I think those are the things that we also need to be looking at on a parallel track, and I'm happy to offer our firepower for that.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, Ruth Lawson with the Jefferson Chamber. Also as well, what we've promised to do, and I've made a draft, is a survey to our membership. I think it's important, like Jerry and I and others in business organizations often hear our members kind of discuss the issues, or they'll come and, kind of have like a really, I'm trying to think of the word to use it, venting session to us, just at we're at an event. And so we're able to kind of circle back to those ideas, but I think it's important for us to provide to our members at least an opportunity to be heard, whether that be if they're given their name or anonymously. I know we've had some concerns too from our membership of making sure that when they do voice their concerns, that if they do have an ongoing planning or permitting issue, that those concerns don't hinder that process. So I will be, I've pretty much drafted the survey. I am happy to provide the link once I send that out to our membership, and I would love for all of you to either, forward it to parties that would be interested in providing results or providing feedback, and also give that feedback once we receive it to the committee.
Similarly to Ruth, I think, and I'm offering this as something probably most of us could do, our membership has had direct experience getting buildings built and getting things through the process. So we'll probably use Ruth's form too and poll them directly and say, give us exactly your experience, and maybe if we get 50 of these things and we all find a common thread in all 30 or 40 of them, then we could say, okay, well, obviously there's some friction at this particular spot. But also, similarly to what Jerry said, I know there are people at this table, and if not you specifically, then people in your organizations who have done projects in Houston and Dallas and Mobile and Birmingham and Nashville, and I'm sure you've seen horror stories there that we don't want to bring here. But have seen success stories there that we would certainly want to bring here. So I know we're still developing our structure and figuring out how we're going to do these things, and Charles, I'll be more than happy to help in any way I can. But I would suggest that think, just like Jerry was suggesting, go back to your office and think, we built that hotel in, I don't care, Memphis, and man, we got that permit in like 3 weeks. Whatever they do was working, and just for example.
Congratulations, Mr. Chair. Peter Sparrett, AI in New Orleans. I know it was mentioned that next time, we're going to review the My Government Online. I think something, and this might be part of it, but something that might be really great that I'd love to see is kind of what does it look like on your side rather than just, on our side, because, we submit things, it seems like it goes into a black hole and we don't understand the process. And a lot of times what I see, and this kind of goes across the board with jurisdictions, is the lack of knowing how long something takes is the initial friction point, where owners are asking us, when do I get a permit? And we're always, they're paying us, so we're trying to be positive about it. So, we probably shorten the timeline because we don't know the timeline. And I think the the unknowns are what are really detrimental to business. It's detrimental to timeline. So, you know, that's one that's tough. And then, you know, I've sat on some of these other, you know, committees, and the plan reviewers will have, at one point, have told us, you know, we get these things, and there's like one or two, if you could just do this for us, it would make the review process go 2 hours faster. And I think if we can get to that, where obviously we're going to give all the feedback to you, but we'd also like to get feedback, you know, are there things that we are, you know, since I'm representing the architects, are there things that the architects are doing that are slowing the process down? Could be. You know, we have 500 members at AIA New Orleans, so we can get that out to everyone if there's information that needs to be shared. So, yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah, I think we can get something done that's going to be positive. My biggest thing, and I'll probably say it, is timeline. If someone said it takes 6 months to get a permit, which I hope it doesn't, and it hits 6 months, that would still be better than when we think it's a month and it takes 4 months, or like, that's the unknown. Like I'll probably say at every meeting is the thing that causes stress and kills projects. So thank you.
I would like to add that I think just because you're saying that, I think I've never talked to our employees, but some one-to-one conversations from the person and hearing the side on the developer's frustration, and like you said, our employees, what they're frustrated with, we could knock some things out. So we've never talked about it as a staff, but I think those conversations, they might be hard conversations, but let's get through them, because our employees want to be successful and want a project successful too, and they have a lot of wealth of information that I think we need to get down to their level. I'm not the one doing it, but I'm sure they would like to say, yeah, if you got it to me this way, I could do it much quicker, like identify. So thank you for that, and I will ask our directors to see what staff members are open to giving those, you know, their comments on this, because they have a role in this too. They can't be absent from you know, this committee. Okay?
Years ago, Jefferson Parish had a one-stop department. Mr. Giusti ran the one-stop department, and if you had a project that you were waiting for a permit on, or whatever the case may be, you could call that department, and that individual would make contact with all of the different department heads to find out exactly what the issue is and how to address it and how to correct it. The system, you know, when I look at this system here, I mean, this is convoluted. It really is. And I think if we could come up with a few examples, and I want to just take a minute to give you an example. I had a major tenant coming into our shopping center looking to lease 50-something thousand square feet and to take it over from an existing tenant. And all they wanted to do was get a banner, coming soon. That process took the better part of, I think, 3 weeks to get a banner. No change in use, doing the same thing. We were told all kinds of things. You know, it's got to get approved by this one, it's got to get this checked out, it's got to get that checked out. And it ended up, and they were very frustrated with that. Now they're in the permitting process, and I don't know where they stand at this point. But the point I'm trying to make is some of these things are simple, and it seems as though the parish makes them very complicated. If there was one person or one department within the parish that could handle issues and run the traps for the developer or the tenant, I think that would expedite the process significantly.
I want to second that. I think I had a conversation with a Jefferson Parish employee the other day. If we could do an AI, like Ask Jeeves, you know, thing, where it's like, all right, how complicated is your permit? You know, put it in 3 buckets. And sometimes these things don't have to be as complicated as what they turn out to be a lot of times. That could be a possibility, you know, as far as distinguishing, you know, you got to distinguish the hurdles before you can really go through the rest of the permit process. And if you had somebody like an Ask Jeeves, be like, does my property, trigger CPZ? Well, yeah, it does. This is what you have to go through. And, being on the PAB and chairing it, I see a lot of people come in and they're irate. The whole neighborhood comes in, when I see them. And it's like, they don't even know the process before they get there. And a lot of times that can be avoided by maybe some of those big projects like Ochsner, like the Children's Museum. It could have been vetted out through a neighborhood participation project. But I mean, that's a sample of, a small sample of not all projects go through that. Maybe 1% of the projects go through that. But I think that needs to be kind of, looked at a little bit. I don't know, maybe. That's how I see it. Yeah, at the, because, I agree with Peter, because, we have to answer to the business owner, and we're like saying, okay, it's gonna take about 4 weeks for state fire marshal, and we can put it into permit concurrently, so we should have a permit by the time, fire marshal is done, so say 6 to 8 weeks. But sometimes it takes longer, and it kind of puts us in a pickle a little bit. And, some guardrails would help with that, and, something we can probably come up with, maybe.
If I can add one more thing, if I don't need that probably. The common theme here, and we all know it, it's regulatory burden. And I think that as we move into this and we move into the zoning requests in the future, I think we have to be careful there, because we literally will kill ourselves on trying to develop and trying to create something that, and I don't even want to use the word affordability because that's so hard to get today, but the reality is we have to be very careful in this committee. We can definitely come up with something that works for everyone and doesn't constrict ourselves to the point where we don't have development in the future like we want to. That's very important, but it's a very common thing.
If I can expand on that a little bit, Frank, West Jefferson is where the future growth of Jefferson Parish lies. And the company that I work for has thousands and thousands of acres of land, a lot of which is prime for development. These planning studies that somebody decides they need to have, in a lot of cases, we're not participating in that study. And some of the concepts that have come out of some of these planning studies have been so far-fetched, in my opinion. And I think even Genco may have had some planning studies for developing all of their property and whatnot. We haven't been able to develop any of the property around the TPC golf course. As I understand, Genco has not been able to develop or sell off any of the property that they have, in their development. Whether or not that has an impact on the zoning overlay or whatever it's called. East Jefferson is different from West Jefferson. I watched East Jefferson grow. I lived there for the longest time. Now I live here on the West Bank. And to put restrictions on development on West Jefferson because of the problems that are present in some people's eyes on East Jefferson is troubling for me. East Jefferson, despite all the issues that have come up about where it is now, I mean, there were very few regulations, and look at how it developed. Now, a lot of that thought process is being put on West Jefferson, and we haven't even touched any significant growth other than residential growth. So I just think that, we need to spend a little bit of time looking at a project on its own as opposed to trying to compare it to another project or another part of Jefferson Parish.
Mr. Chair. I have a technical question of the staff. this being a public meeting, I'm not volunteering for this. Do we have staff taking minutes that? Yes. Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Our office, the Parish Attorney's Office, will be serving as secretary. We're recording this minute.
And we plan to transcribe it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because we'll have to adopt them.
And we have minutes as well.
Another housekeeping, can we get a distribution list in case I'm going to send this form out? Or?
Do they have, like, members of all the members? Do they have contact? We get that.
We have the contact information that was provided to us by the respective organizations that appointed you. So for some of you, we do have phone numbers. For others of you, we just have your names and email addresses. So if we could update the sign-in sheet, we had all of you sign in today, then we can build out a mailing list, I guess, that we could provide to the various board members. Mm-hmm.
For email and phone number and. Yeah, okay, you want to do that?
We'll send all to you.
That's fine. That's fine. Yes, I have replied to all of the committee members confirming their appointments, so they should all have my email address. You can all just reply back to me with whatever contact information you feel comfortable sharing with the other committee members.
I guess a process, if I were to send this survey link to the committee members and I receive responses back that maybe members or their significant, clients or whatever don't want to share with the committee, is that an issue legally? Like open meetings law, I guess I'm asking.
Purposes of
Public records. Like as long as I don't send it all to the committee, we're good, right?
Anything that it would be captured in an email chain would be subject to public records. Of course, if anyone was to request it, we would always black out people's cell phone information.
Names.
I just understood your exact question.
So if I were to send out the membership survey and I get responses back that in which people want to remain anonymous, but they sent it to me via email, I don't want to mess with that person's anonymity by sending it.
Before you would send it to everyone else, you would block out their email.
Okay.
So they would
That's
be-
okay.
Yeah, then it would be blacked out.
Correct, because you're sending it out from the chamber's perspective rather than it being the work of this committee, and then you are just bringing that information back to the committee.
Once you send it to everybody else, it becomes a public
Right.
record. But if you're blacked out that person's
I guess I
name.
just want everyone on the committee to be aware that if someone's asking to be anonymous, to not send it to
Before you send it to everyone, do it to where their name is not on it.
Chance Miller, I was just recently voluntold that, to sit on the board of Louisiana Housing Corporation. That being said, that provides statewide housing for affordable residents in the state. There is a big push to streamline at the state side as well, deregulation as much as humanly possible. And that's coming from, governor's doing a great job to streamline that process. And if there's anything I can share to that note on the statewide, I will be happy to share with this board.
Move to adjourn.
Just real quick, I think it would be helpful if right up front we could set expectations for the public when they go apply for a permit, to maybe give them a time frame, an expected time frame, so they know normally how long these things take. Also maybe consider, I don't know how difficult this would be, but maybe a permit tracker to where when they apply online, they can see where their permit is in the process as it moves along. and also maybe have a button if they're at a specific point in the process where they can click and they can see the contact information for the person who's in charge of that particular aspect. And then I just have a quick question. So if a member wants to get something on the agenda for the next meeting, what would be the process for that?
You would send that to me and to Mr. Silvernagle.
Just email the request.
And it would have to be 24 hours before, right?
We have to post the agenda 24 hours in advance. So ideally, as soon as you have a specific item for consideration.
And we would need it a few days before that 24-hour
Right.
cutoff.
Yes, so as soon as possible.
And Julia, we're gonna post it on our website, what the agenda is, or just?
So the agenda is posted to the parish website, the calendar, and then the agenda will also be posted in the facility where we're meeting. So the next meeting, which is scheduled for June, will be at the East Bay Regional Library. I believe that is going to be June 5th. But Michelle Forsythe from the parish president's office will send out a calendar invite similar to what we did for this meeting to all of the committee members.
Will Place. Just have a question on how we plan to develop the next agenda and who's actually developing the agenda. Is it, Mr. Chairman, is it you, is it with other input or input from your, from your body?
I mean, I think that's something the committee can have that conversation right now. Certainly, we, as I mentioned, one possibility would be to look at our current application software from both the applicant side and also from jurisdiction side. I think that that's potentially a longer-term conversation for this committee is the software systems that we use for application. Internally, we've had a lot of discussion. We've looked at other software systems. People ask, why are you using this one? What about? So I think that's potentially a topic of conversation at some point. But
Charles proposed the agenda, and then we can, I think if a member requests an item, then it goes on around. That's how the rules work for Robert's rules.
Generally, or an item could be discussed at this meeting to make sure that it's to the next one. So as we go along and have more meetings, we'll be more prepared to come up with what items will be on the agenda. If there's any presentations like such as software for the next meeting, that might take the whole meeting. It would give everybody some time to think about what should be on these next meetings.
And I'm gonna be thinking about this agenda in the next week or so, just to start looking at it. And if any board member would wanna, I'll have my email address it's on the distribution list. Email me any comments, email me your thoughts on the agenda, on what items you would like to see. Working with Brett, and Juliet will develop a pre-agenda in the next couple of weeks in order to get to everybody. So we'll have some outline bullet points on what we think should be covered, and I would like feedback from everybody to expand that.
I think with the, looking at it from my perspective, and I know a lot of you deal with this all the time. From our perspective, I don't deal with permitting or planning constantly. I know big picture things. So I don't know if that my government, if you all plan to show us like a real example, and something, and we don't want to see something that was your fastest timeline ever, or your slowest timeline, but I don't know if there's a way, Jim and I were talking about, you ought to provide us the average time it takes to,
I know we have a computer system, so I would imagine every permit's in the same system. And so there should be a dashboard that says we have 50 permits in the house, the average time for the last 5 years has been 1 week, 2 weeks. Because I know y'all are very hesitant to say, our permit's gonna take 4 weeks, because some take 1 week, and some take 10 weeks. Just show us the average, and then you can tell us why. Well, some take 10 weeks, some take 1 week, on their dashboard it says they're averaging 7 weeks.
if I may just interject something here, it's my understanding that if you're going in for a permit, whether it's a permit for a sign or a permit for whatever, put building sign, does that permit application go into the same system someplace? And then somebody in their infinite wisdom says, well, that's got to go here, that's got to go there. I bring that up because I think it would be helpful to all of us to understand the process. In other words, if somebody's coming in for a non-building permit, a sign permit or whatever, I mean, you got to have a permit for just about everything today, build a fence, whatever. Where does that go? Does that go to the permitting department, and do they make a decision on it? Or does it have to go to planning, the CIA, the I've gotten caught, I have tried to follow some of these things, and I've been told, well, it's in this department, it's in that department, and I think it would be helpful to know what the process is.
Can you walk us through this next week or next time?
Yes, well, that's the recommendation that I was making, is that kind of show you how that works in the software system. And to Mr. Basola's point, I think it would be beneficial to look at several different types of applications, and we can show you from where the applicant starts the process to then what it looks like on the jurisdiction. In answer to your question, yes, there are, without spending too much time on it today, there are different sort of preset requirements depending upon the type of application that is submitted. One thing, and I'll just, again, not to spend too much time, but I think it's beneficial for our next meeting, is sometimes the plan reviewer or the person or the permit navigator who's taking that application has to sort of figure out what's going on based on what the person has described their project to be. And so is there a way, back to Mr. Sparrow's point about how do we better educate people to start their applications to help expedite the process? So, and to your question of people tracking their project through the system, so that's why I do think it would be beneficial for this next committee meeting to be about the process and give everybody kind of a firm handle from the applicant side, but also from the jurisdiction side of what we're all looking at once we're in the midst of an application. So unless there are any other objections, I think that frankly is going to be a substantive enough conversation to sort of fill the agenda for the next meeting.
Vince, to provide a little context, and Julia can correct me if I'm wrong, but part of the impetus for going to the My Government Now platform was the last time we visited this, there was the realization that the person coming for a garage sale permit and the dumpster permit and everything else, we're all going into the office for the same thing, waiting in the same line, and having a lot of those more statutory or easy permits migrate online and get that out of the system was going to help. So I think that'll be helpful to see where the person goes for this, where the person goes for this. But that was part of the reason for the adoption of that platform in the first place.
And Jerry, thank you. I understand that, and it's more from the commercial end, But I have to ask this question: Are we adequately staffed in permitting and planning? Because I also get, we don't have enough staff, or this one's out, or 4 people are out. Is that a problem? And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
The boss is sitting right here, because every director wants more money, so it's that, right, Julia? Be honest.
I will be honest. In our opinion, no, we are not adequately staffed for the work these employees are asked to take on. We have a very high volume of permits and applications at any given time. In particular, the building permit department, like many of you in your private industries, is having difficulty filling positions
yes, no.
But it is a factor in our processing times, I will admit that.
We could sit here for months and come up with, new systems, but if you don't have the people to be able to handle it, that's a problem. The other thing I have to ask is, years ago, you used to be able to come into the permitting department, sit down with one of the permitting people to talk about what you want to do. Is that process still available? Because I'm being told everything now has to be submitted via email, and I also find out that in some cases, that email was sent 2 or 3 days ago, and the planner or the permitting person didn't have a chance to look at it.
So applications are all received online, correct? We do have the permit navigators, I believe, are still taking walk-in customers. I believe the planning department takes walk-in applications in addition to regularly holding what we call pre-application meetings, which is where the planning department brings in departments that will be involved in the plan review and will meet with the owner, the design professional, and go through what the process will be, tells them what the expectations of timeline, particularly for cases that go through what we call the legislative process, meaning it has to go before the planning advisory board and the parish council. Just by virtue of those 2 steps, you're adding 4 months to the process, simply because of public advertisements and set meeting schedules. So we do try to be honest when we have those interactions with customers to say, this is our expectation of how long your process is going to take. I will be very honest because I think it's an important part of this conversation, and particularly for those of you who are on the design professional side of this equation. Part of the yellow line that we don't control is how long it takes the applicant to get a revision back to the department. How long it takes you to submit a set of plans or to provide the information that has been asked in order for the appropriate reviewing department or participant to say go, no, go, and move you on to the next step. And so all of that, again, we can get into as we talk through the permit process in the next meeting.
So I want to make sure I understand, the walk-in is still available?
It is still available.
On an appointment basis?
But the applications do need to be submitted online.
Okay.
I'll second that because what she's saying, in my experience, just dealing with permits, I've always set up a pre-app meeting, and that is just, it's been so beneficial for us. They've always been available, planning department, building department, and if you set up that pre-app meeting, you have that interaction, and a lot of the stuff that you come up against, or the walls that you have to face, or obstacles you have to overcome, you're going hand in hand with the plan reviewers and the building department. You understand what's in front of you before you do it. So to me, that's a big key in cutting out some of the red tape and having efficiency through the process. Even though the process is convoluted, we can do better with it, for sure.
To elaborate on that, I agree with that, because I set up pre-design meetings with the parish, and every one of the departments are willing to sit down with you and talk to you with that pre-development meeting. And I think it's an education process on what the design professionals need to be submitting to the parish, okay? Because in my experience when we're submitting documents is that when I submit my documents, and again, I'm calling this plan reviewer the next day to find out where I'm at in line, if he got my queue, am I accepted? But he may be working on somebody else's project that didn't submit all the correct documents, okay? So now you got these homeowners and they're not going to a design professional, they go to somebody else and they submit these documents, and now this reviewer is sitting down there understaffed, we don't have enough people reviewing, and he's going through and sorting out and helping this person get through the permitting process. So there have been situations that we submitted projects and we sit there and you go, oh, you're third in the queue to be reviewed, but I got these plans and it's taking days and days to review. When they get to our project and everything was submitted correctly, it's at the end of the day, I'm getting a permit, hey, go pay your fee. So it's the process is, if we can provide the parish with all the correct documents, with all the correct information, easy to read, where they don't have to go look for it. Okay, this is the zone, this is our occupied, everything's in a correct format.
And I don't know, how do you translate that to the design professionals to have, like, this is the format that you submit, because all of us got our own ideas of how we put our documents together. And that would make it very easy for the reviewer. If you look at a set of my documents, my square footage is on the same spot on every set of documents. Everything, these guys know that they've been doing it for 40, they know where to go look on my drawings to tell you where to find information. So when you submit that, it makes it an easy process from start to finish.
And I think new construction is a little bit different than a remodel or repurpose of a property. And I think that's where we have gotten bogged down, because in a lot of cases, we don't know what the parish wants, what the planner wants. So we'll submit a basic plan as to how we're going to repurpose the property or repurpose it for the new tenant coming in. And then, you get hit with a whole bunch of myriad of things. Had you known it up front, it would have been a little bit different story.
Well, there's also a couple of different, you also have the non-overlay districts that are easy to understand. It's one set of, you go look in a book in one section and you understand how to get from A to B. It's when you get into Pack City, Old Metairie, Wapaco, all those have got the overlay districts now. Now you start moving out to different agencies. Now you're not only on the first floor, but you're on 1, 6, you're on 8, you're on different floors now trying to navigate through that process. And that's where those pre-design meetings become very important to figure out how you want to get there. Because none of us want to draw 90% of documents and be in front of these reviewers and find out we got all these changes that we got to make, or something that doesn't come up. And that's something that we probably need to be looking at, is what department has the biggest impact on our document process. Because that's the one you want to get in front of first, okay? Because you don't want to develop this whole thing. Your client is extremely happy about the plan, and you come and say, whoops, we got to cut 15 feet off the back because we got this kind of overlay that we got to deal with. So that's the process I think we need to be talking about and how to navigate. But I think your point about your plans, I think we got a plan intake. Isn't Ricky Holiday? Don't he look at the permits that come in and assign them to the different stuff? So we have somewhat of a permit intake person. Like in New Orleans, they got a permit intake. You get assigned somebody that looks at the permit. Oh, you got a survey, you got this, you got that. And then they pass it on and they put it in the queue for planning, mechanical, and the rest of it.
It's like the first check.
The first checklist, and I think that's kind of Ricky's position with the parish to kind of look at it and assign it out to the different.
And look, they do a good job. The staff does a great job. If we don't have enough people, though, that's what we're saying. That's a systemic problem.
Everything is like upfront. How do you may have a lot of projects this month and one project next month. So it's the same thing with I think the parish. What is the average number of permits we get in a month?
We'll have that information for you, but I think we looked at it, and we looked at it a month ago. The individual plan reviewers in the building permit department were carrying a caseload of 70-something permits each that they were managing in various stages.
Okay.
I would just say, I think one of the main goals here is to, every design professional should be able to put enough on their plan to get a building permit. I think a lot of the heartache and time consuming comes in that planning and what is required for variances or planning advisory boards, all that. When you go through the whole process, get to construction documents, submit, and then you find out that you have to go to the planning, go through all these appeals or variance processes, that's when it's even harder to go back to an owner and say, hey, I just gave you 100%, you can build, but now it's going to be 4 months to get there. So even if we get it to a point where that planning process, you don't need 100% drawings to start the variance process. That way, as we're progressing as design professionals with our drawings, you're going through that, if we can't shrink that process, going through that, the meeting, I think
that's the biggest complaint we get to, is that, just like she was saying, you can't control how fast it takes to get the plans back. But what you can control is that if you send me the comments and they get addressed, then it's approved. But what about you send the comments, they get addressed, and then you submit them back, and then new comments come from stuff that was on the drawings the first time? You say, all right, we'll address that stuff, and you resubmit them, and then they come back again and say, multiple reviews. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just had that experience, okay? And I don't mind, you know, you submit your documents, the reviewer looks at it one time, and you get your comments back, and you make the revisions, and you send it in, and they catch something, and they say, oh, I forgot this on that first review. I don't mind that second review, and you get some more comments, and you're submitting this the third time. Sometimes when you get to comment number 6, okay, and you're like, wait, this was like a simple little, this should have been like the first row of comments come back to me. And now we on it, you're holding me up, and then we gotta throw it back in LURTAC for another 7 days? I said, why does the attorney need to see it again? Why does environmental need to see it? I mean, it's only affecting one guy. It could go to his email address. And those things kind of happen, and that's the process that gets a little frustrating on my end as a design professional, is that, okay, let's catch it in the first, second, you know, I'll give you 3. But when you get into that 6,
And 2 strikes.
Yeah.
And if you get to a situation where an employee changes hands, I don't have a specific situation here, but I'm sure it's happened, where somebody leaves the job and somebody else comes on the job, and they make a comment, and something fit the first time. They say, we want to like this, because the first guy told me to change the other way.
right.
That's exactly the issue. How many bites of the apple does Jefferson Parish get in giving one set of comments, the second set of comments, the third set of comments, the fourth set of comments, and come to find out most of these comments should have been done in the first request, but now it changes down the road, and we all know, we're all volunteering to be in this board, and our time is money. Money to Jefferson Parish on new construction, that's my background. The quicker I can build the house, the quicker Jefferson Parish makes tax money. So that being said, every delay costs everyone money, costs my clients money, costs everyone money. So how many bites of the apple we get on the plan reviewing side? And Danny, you do a great job. But it's hard for the plan reviewers. Have you seen the International Building Code? Plan reviewers have to, Danny, correct me if I'm wrong, pass the residential code, commercial code. And how much they get paid, I don't know. But that's hard to do. That's very difficult to do. And y'all almost in a unwinnable spot per se on the plan reviewer side, because there's a lot of details in that.
Is there a liability if they make a mistake, or is the mistake all on the guy who sees the drawing?
I would think it ultimately.
It's a rhetorical question.
Yeah. Jefferson Parish can go.
Exactly. So, okay, you took an extra 3 weeks to make a typo change.
But in my goal here is to streamline for all of our residents. But is there, and this is rhetorical, is there a priority list for builders that build with Charles to go at this stack, because we've been doing it so long? I don't know if it's a priority come in play on that. I'm trying to submit a new building construction, and they got 3 requests on how to build stairs. I'm going, okay, I can't get my permit out before I give you what now on these stairs, details that aren't there. But when the inspector comes out, the stairs are built wrong, I could be already starting construction, and then if I gotta rip the stairs out, I eat it. Let's go. Let me get a permit. Let me start the whole process. But it just gets stranglehold there.
I look forward, Jeff Charlotte, I look forward to sharing my experience with the committee. But I hear a lot of concepts that we looked at years ago. I was plan review supervisor for a number of years, and I think there's some value in looking at new construction versus renovation. No question about that. Because with the new construction, you're going to get other departments involved, engineering, planning, whatever. On renovation, I look at jobs now that are in existing office buildings. There's no change in use, it's an office. There's no parking changes, there's no drainage, it's there. And yet, that simple, I call it simple project, is gonna go through the same process as brand new construction. It's gonna be reviewed by other departments, I think without necessity. In fact, there's a lot of times when those same elements are involved, there's no change in use, no zoning issues. I think there's a lot of times when the state fire marshal isn't even required, yet they're all sent to the state fire marshal for whatever reason. But the fire marshal only gets involved if there's a change in the exit, a change in the occupancy, change in the structure, right? A lot of these office projects I see, they're still taking a pretty long period of time to get permitted, and I think without necessity. But I think there is a difference, new construction, renovation. Also, it was always a struggle to say, do I take this application in, Madam President, just saying, hey, if I come to yours and you don't have all the information, I kick it to the back of the line. Well, there was a period of time then when we looked and said, look, I'm gonna have somebody up in front, or you come bring the documents to them and show it to them, and we don't take the application if you don't have all the things. It's like, I'm gonna take the application now, submit your survey later, I'll get it to you later. All of a sudden, you're in a line and you don't belong in that line yet, right? So I think that you should give a lot of look at a traffic cop, sorter, whatever, permit, guidance, whatever. But some preliminary look up in front, do we have everything we need so we can put you in line? And then as far as some of these other things with the, I hear you've taken care of that, but, you know, a temporary banner for a new business opening shouldn't, in my opinion, wouldn't even require a permit, but at any rate. Yeah, but I mean, I think.
But Jeff, I remember the days of One Stop.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember that department, and I thought that was actually a good department, but not, you know, for the design professionals, we understood that process and understood it. But you get that homeowner, or you get somebody else trying to do their own documents, and they're going in, that was a good department for them to go sit through. So they're not getting in that line with everybody else, okay? So now they go sit with somebody and they go, oh, you can't, this ain't enough, you need this, you need that, you need that. And they either gonna take that person and say, okay, now you're gonna go find a design professional to do it, or you're gonna have to struggle through and get it done yourself, but you're not in line with a plan review at that time.
Yeah.
Or you're not wasting everybody's time.
And in regard to the several bites at the apple, I used to always tell my plan reviewers, you get one bite at the apple. Now, there are occasions when, hey, I need this information, and this might change something, okay? But more than 2 bites at the apple is too much. It means somebody's not paying attention. And I mean, it's just a matter of fact. And because I could never take it where somebody is reviewing a plan and they hit something that doesn't comply, and they say, okay, this doesn't comply, I'm gonna tell this guy that, and I'm gonna wait for him to reply. They don't look at the rest of the project. But I definitely think you should be looking at separating new construction from renovations and such, because you've got big important projects in Parish sitting in line behind them. All projects are important, but without necessity, they're waiting in line behind some simple things. So I think you can take a look at an over-the-counter type of permit.
We're getting close to our time right now, so go ahead, one more question.
Sorry, this is back to you, Juliet. You mentioned that plan reviewers are essentially just in their capacity looking at 75, managing 75 permits a month. Do you have a baseline on best practices on how many they should be doing? I guess that was.
I don't.
And is there any information out there that
Well, and I think that that's something, we had actually talked about, before Jerry had suggested it. One idea that we had for this committee would be to reach back out to the gentleman we spoke to in Franklin, Tennessee, maybe some of the folks that we spoke to on the chamber's trip to Austin. And so Beth, Danny, and I actually did, following the Austin chamber trip, reach out to the Rolling Rock, is that right, community? One of the suburbs of Austin. We actually had a follow-up conversation with essentially my equivalent in their community and their planning director. And very much smaller community, us, and their staff was probably 3 times ours. Yes, they get a permit issued in 10 days, but that's because somebody has spent 6 months in the planning process before they apply for the actual building permit. So I do think talking to and getting some information about how some of what we maybe want to call aspirational communities are structured and operate, I think would be a good conversation for this community. Are our departments structured in the best way to address some of these things you're talking about? Are there realignments? I think those are things for open hearing from you all in this committee. And I do think to Jerry's point, we're already sort of similarly thinking that hearing from other communities and other jurisdictions about how they do this work would be beneficial, not just for us, but for you all. So that it is transparent, you all are weighing in, will we like this feature, or well, wait, that actually doesn't work for us for these reasons, whether it's different state regulatory environments, local jurisdiction, that help or hurt their processes versus what changes we can make to our process. I do believe, Charles, that Stacey had one.
One final question, Mr. Chairman. All the issues I'm hearing here today, I feel like we can definitely address those. And I think we're going to be able to solve all of these problems. I really do. I would like to request that maybe for the meetings going forward, I think it's crucial that we understand the process of this whole permitting thing, all of this. And I would like to ask that if we could maybe agree on a process moving forward, because I know a lot of times I sit on other committees and boards, we can get into the weeds because there's so many people have so much to say. And I was wondering if maybe we would consider for the next meeting, we'd have to decide, do we just want a general overview of the whole process presented to us without us asking questions or making comments? Maybe just have that done, and then after that, we go through this step by step, and we have to decide, do we want to ask questions and make comments every step of the way and just go through it methodically, or how are we going to move forward with this? Because I think that's very important, just because of my experience with other groups, sometimes we get lost and we don't accomplish what we want to accomplish because we're kind of going in different directions. So maybe we could lay some ground rules like, that we all agree on. I think that would be beneficial.
I agree 100% about, I've been on committees where we get lost, and it's just a conversation that we have. So I think it's very important that we develop that process, and it's going to take group efforts in order for us to get to our goal.
Okay, so on that topic with the agenda, I would advise, and I'm not a voting member, so it's whatever the board selects, but maybe have one more meeting where the presentation is the main topic and set up a process where we can get items on the agenda. Regarding the email format I just talked about earlier, it's okay to distribute materials or surveys to the entire board for the record, but please not discuss by the email chain because we have to keep everything as an open meeting. Those are my two
No deliberations via emails, information only, or you'd be in violation if you're with the forum and everyone's requesting reply all and giving their opinion, and then we get into violations of open meetings law.
I guess on that, if there's items for the agenda, you could email just Juliet, myself, or the chairman, and we could
talk about this first meeting and then move it forward and have a more deliberate process of what needs to be addressed moving forward.
Motion to adjourn. Second.